Welcome to our channel. Today, we delve into the heartbreaking case of Libby Squire, a 21-year-old philosophy student whose life was tragically cut short in a series of events that shook the community and captured international attention. Join us as we unravel the details of this harrowing story, from Libby's fateful night out to the pursuit of justice in the wake of her untimely death. This is the story of Libby Squire, a tale of loss, grief, and the relentless search for truth and accountability. On the evening of January 31st, 2019, 21-year-old Libby Squire, a philosophy student at the University of Hull in East Yorkshire, England, eagerly joined her friends for a night out in Hull, despite having an early morning lecture scheduled for the next day. Libby didn't want to disappoint her friends and opted to enjoy the evening. Throughout the night, she stayed in contact with her boyfriend, James Pye, with the last text message sent at 10:30 p.m. Concerns arose the following day, February 1st, when James, Libby's friends and family attempted to reach her, but were unsuccessful. Upon visiting her residence, they discovered she was not there. Law enforcement interviewed Libby's friends, who revealed that she hadn't been with them when they left the club that night. According to her friends, Libby had been denied entry to the Welly nightclub in Hull due to suspected intoxication. To ensure her safety, her friends arranged for a cab to take her back to her residence on Wellesley Avenue. Subsequent police investigations included a search of the area, leading to the discovery of Libby's house keys in a neighbor's garden. Authorities gathered CCTV footage and interviewed multiple witnesses, determining that Libby had arrived home in the cab. However, upon exiting the vehicle, she walked down the street without entering her house. Based on CCTV footage and witness statements, the police pursued a specific lead regarding Libby's disappearance, strongly believing they had identified the person responsible. Despite this, Libby's whereabouts remained unknown for 7 weeks. Her body was eventually discovered in the Humber estuary, between Spurn Point and Grimsby. A 26-year-old man named Paweł Relowicz was subsequently arrested. Originally from Poland, Relowicz resided in Hull with his wife and 2 young children and worked as a butcher for Caro Foods in Malton, North Yorkshire. He had been questioned by police a few days after Libby was reported missing, but was released at that time. Relowicz claimed that he encountered Libby crying in the street and offered to give her a ride home. However, he stated that he dropped her off near some playing fields because she was feeling unwell, and that was the last time he saw her. Despite his assertions of innocence, Relowicz was charged with rape and murder after police reviewed CCTV footage. Throughout the trial, Paweł Relowicz steadfastly maintained his plea of not guilty to the charges brought against him. However, the prosecution painted a chilling picture of the events leading up to Libby's tragic demise. On that fateful night, Libby returned home in an exceptionally vulnerable state, exacerbated by the bitterly cold weather and her intoxicated condition. The accidental loss of her house keys only added to her distress, leaving her in tears as she struggled to navigate the streets. Numerous witnesses attested to encountering Libby in her distressed state after she was dropped off by the cab outside her residence. Among them, Jorge Thompson described witnessing her fall flat on her face, struggling to maintain her balance as she attempted to walk. Libby's neighbors, Hannah Wright and Emma Halshaw, extended a compassionate invitation for her to seek refuge indoors, yet Libby chose not to accept their offer. Further testimonies from Roland Jacobs and Alan Jones revealed their futile attempts to aid Libby as they encountered her on the ground. Despite their efforts, Libby's intoxicated state rendered her communication difficult to comprehend, leaving them feeling helpless in their attempts to assist her. Similarly, Lorna Allen recounted a distressing scene near a bus stop, where Libby's slurred speech and erratic behavior indicated her profound intoxication and distress. Amidst Libby's evident vulnerability, the prosecution alleged that Paweł Relowicz was actively prowling the streets, seeking out an opportunity. CCTV footage presented to the jury depicted Relowicz's silver Vauxhall Astra navigating the area, seemingly in search of a victim. The prosecution highlighted Relowicz's disturbing history of sexually motivated burglaries, during which he collected stolen items as trophies, including women's underwear and intimate toys. This pattern of predatory behavior, coupled with Relowicz's presence in the vicinity at the time of Libby's distress, formed a compelling narrative for the prosecution. They argued that Relowicz's intent was clear, to exploit Libby's vulnerable state for his own gratification. As the trial unfolded, the harrowing details painted a stark picture of the events leading up to Libby's disappearance, shedding light on the calculated actions of the accused. When Pavel Relowich was arrested in connection with Libby's murder, investigators made a chilling discovery in his car: a bag containing items that pointed to a disturbing pattern of behavior. Alongside these items were photographs of young women, raising concerns about Relowich's potential involvement in other crimes. Initially, Relowich claimed ignorance about the bag, later stating that he had forgotten about it and had no knowledge of its origin or how long it had been there. Evidence presented in court revealed a series of unsettling incidents leading up to Libby's disappearance. Relowich had reportedly exposed himself to women in public and peered into windows, instilling fear and discomfort in his victims. One female student described a terrifying encounter when she caught sight of a man's face peering into her window while she was dressing, causing her considerable alarm. She later identified Relowich as the individual responsible for this disturbing intrusion. Another woman recounted seeing Relowich at her window, observing her during an intimate moment with her boyfriend. Later that night, a used contraceptive was discovered hanging on the front door, accompanied by women's underwear found in the letterbox. In another disturbing incident, a victim found an unwrapped contraceptive and a pair of women's underwear beside her child's toy, indicating a blatant violation of personal space and boundaries. During the trial, forensic scientist Nicola Taylor testified that Relowich's DNA and bodily fluid were detected on the women's underwear, suggesting intimate contact and indicating potential involvement in the reported incidents. These testimonies and evidence painted a troubling picture of Relowich's predatory behavior and his disregard for the safety and privacy of others. The prosecution built their case around the theory that Libby entered Relowich's car after midnight and was driven to the Oak Road playing fields. While CCTV footage captured Libby getting into the car, no further footage was available after her arrival at the playing fields. The prosecution alleged that Relowich then sexually assaulted Libby and disposed of her body in the cold waters of the River Hull, where it subsequently drifted out to sea. To bolster their argument, the prosecution called witness Sam Alford, who resided in close proximity to the playing fields. Alford testified that he heard a woman's desperate screams coming from the direction of the river. According to Alford's account, a man was observed emerging from the darkness and fleeing the scene shortly thereafter. The prosecution asserted that they believed the woman screaming was Libby and that the man seen running away was Relowich, further solidifying their case against him. The prosecution's case against Pavel, notably, lacked additional CCTV footage of Libby after the playing fields. They argued that Pavel had visible scratches on his face, alleging that Libby inflicted them while fighting for her life. Summarizing their argument, the prosecution conveyed to the jury that the evidence suggested Libby was raped by a man whose sole intention was to abduct her from safety and subject her to his uncontrollable sexual urges in a remote area familiar to him. During the trial, the prosecution encountered challenges in determining the exact cause of Libby's death. Dr. Matthew Lee, the medical examiner, testified that due to Libby's body being submerged in water for nearly 2 months, it was impossible to conclusively ascertain if she was alive or deceased when she entered the water due to decomposition. An apparent bruise was observed on the inside of her right thigh, along with 2 lacerations inside her upper lip, indicative of blunt trauma. Small hemorrhages around her mouth were noted, suggesting squeezing or compression of the neck or covering of the mouth. But it was also mentioned that these injuries might have occurred post-mortem or during immersion in water. Dr. Lyle mentioned the possibility of additional injuries on her body not visible due to decomposition. Testimony regarding potential causes of death for Libby included hypothermia, drowning, and asphyxia. Regarding hypothermia, Dr. Lyle explained that death could occur if an individual is inadequately clothed, their clothing becomes wet, or if they have consumed alcohol. Toxicology tests revealed Libby had alcohol levels exceeding the legal driving limit. Dr. Lyle couldn't definitively attribute Libby's death to hypothermia, but couldn't rule it out either. Establishing drowning as a cause of death was challenging, as classic signs like froth or foam emerging from the mouth and well-expanded lungs were not present. Dr. Lyle noted a slightly crackly feel to the lungs, but they were not wet or significantly expanded, and there was no froth emerging from the mouth. Consequently, he couldn't conclusively determine drowning as the cause of death for Libby. In the meticulous examination of Libby's injuries concerning the potential cause of asphyxia as her demise, certain significant findings surfaced. There was a notable absence of bleeding in the brain or skull, with facial bones, including the horseshoe-shaped bone behind the tongue, remaining intact. Dr. Lyle elucidated that injuries such as abrasions on Libby's forehead, nose, and eyelids were consistent with post-mortem movement of the body in water. Notably, no tiny pinprick areas of bleeding were detected in the eyes or inner surface of the lips, which could typically indicate physical interruption like asphyxiation or strangulation. However, their absence didn't categorically rule out asphyxia, as such indicators tend to dissipate relatively swiftly after death. Summarily, hypothermia, drowning, and asphyxia were all plausible causes of death, yet the precise cause eluded determination. Testimony during the trial revealed seminal fluid cells matching Powell's DNA profile found in swabs taken from inside Libby's body. Additionally, individuals close to Powell provided potentially incriminating details, with his friend recounting Powell's offer to a girl at the bus stop for a ride home, alleging she made advances toward him. Powell's colleague testified to Powell offering a girl a ride home, followed by her peculiar behavior of undressing in his car, leading Powell to ask her to leave. Further evidence surfaced from Powell's neighbor, who testified to witnessing him cleaning his car mats on a bitterly cold day, deeming it unusual. Assessing Libby's vulnerability that fateful night, Professor Charles Deacon provided expert testimony, indicating her limited ability to defend herself due to alcohol consumption. Her impaired coordination and judgment, compounded by her distressed state, rendered her significantly vulnerable. In closing arguments, the prosecutor implored the jury to contemplate the circumstances surrounding Libby's state that night. Intoxicated, cold, visibly distressed, and in need of help. Witnesses corroborated seeing her in distress, lying on the ground and shivering. The prosecutor urged the jury to question the plausibility of Libby engaging in consensual activity with Powell in her vulnerable condition, emphasizing the implausibility of such a proposition. Contrary to the prosecution's narrative, the defense presented the case that Powell encountered Libby, offered her a ride home, and engaged in consensual activity. They posited that Powell stopped at the playing fields when Libby felt unwell, suggesting the possibility that she may have taken her own life. During the trial, Pavel Relowich took the stand to offer his testimony. According to his account, he encountered Libby crying on the street and, expressing compassion, offered her a lift home. Relowich stated that he found her on the pavement of Beverly Road, crying and shouting, and he wanted to help her. He asserted that the sexual encounter they had was consensual. CCTV footage of Libby and Relowich walking on Beverly Road before driving to the Oak Road playing fields was presented to the jury. Relowich admitted to driving around that night with the intention of finding a woman for intimate purposes. He also confessed to past actions involving the theft of women's underwear and intimate toys, and watching individuals through windows. Relowich explained that he initially withheld this information because he feared it would lead to issues in his marriage. According to Relowich's testimony, he speculated that Libby might have ingested something or had something put in her drink, as her behavior seemed unusual when he offered her a ride home. Libby gave him her hand and they walked to the car. Relowich noted that she seemed more comfortable inside the warm car. However, while driving, he claimed that Libby made gestures indicating she wanted to vomit, prompting him to stop near the Oak Road playing fields. Relowich recounted that when the car stopped, Libby tried to exit but fell, kneeling in the snow and crying. According to his testimony, when he drove away, Libby was walking on the pavement, and he did not see her again. Upon returning home, Relowich took a bath and watched a movie. Worried about Libby's well-being, he went back to the playing fields to ensure she wasn't lying somewhere, but he found nothing. During the trial, the court learned that Libby had faced mental health challenges in the past. A statement from Libby's mother, Libby Squire, was read in court, revealing Libby's history of mental health issues, including an eating disorder and depression. However, Lisa expressed that her daughter had a fear of water since childhood, avoiding swimming pools even on vacation, and was generally frightened of the dark. Lisa did not believe her daughter would have taken her own life. The court was presented with excerpts from Libby's medical records confirming her struggles with depression and anxiety. Additionally, it was revealed that Libby had researched various methods of taking her own life and had contemplated suicide, including thoughts of throwing herself into a river. Even Relowich's own legal team characterized his past behavior as gross and extremely frightening. However, the defense argued that there was no evidence of any violent attack on Libby. Relowich's attorney contended that Relowich took advantage of Libby and engaged in deception, but did not commit rape or murder. The defense posited the possibility that Libby may have taken her own life by falling into the river. In his closing statement, the attorney urged the jury to contemplate whether there could be an innocent explanation for Relowich's lies, stating that sometimes those who are not guilty lie. He acknowledged that Relowich should not have left Libby alone that night, given her condition, but suggested that Relowich may have lied about meeting her to protect his family. The defense's closing argument aimed to raise doubts about the prosecution's case, emphasizing the absence of conclusive evidence linking Relowich to the alleged crimes. The jury was asked to deliberate, and they could not reach a unanimous decision. So, the judge, Mrs. Justice Lambert, told the jury of 7 women and 5 men that she would accept majority verdicts of either 10-2 or 11-1. They found Relowich guilty of rape unanimously and guilty of murder by a majority verdict of 11-1.
Breaking news on the Libby Squire murder trial, and Pavel Relowich has been found guilty at Sheffield Crown Court of raping and murdering the Hull University student Libby Squire. Sky's Katerina Vitozzi is live outside Sheffield Crown Court for us.
Yes, just in the last few minutes, the jury, which has been deliberating for 5 days now, coming back with guilty verdicts for both counts of murder and rape. But Relowich and his defence team throughout saying that although he did admit to having sex with the university student, he said that was consensual, but a jury now deciding that in fact it was rape and that he then was guilty of her murder.
The heartbreaking story of Libby Squire's tragic murder is profoundly distressing, not only for the unimaginable loss suffered by her family, but also for the chilling details of the events leading up to her death. The pain and anguish expressed by Libby's mother, Lisa Squire, in her statement reflect the devastating impact of losing a beloved child under such horrific circumstances.
Firstly, we would like to thank everybody for their love and support over the last 2 years. We've both really appreciated it. Our special thanks go out to the police teams and the other agencies that were involved with Libby's case from the outset through to today. As a family, today's verdict changes nothing for us. There is no closure, we don't get to have Libby back, and our lives don't revert back to normal. However, we are pleased that all the hard work and dedication of the police and legal teams has been recognised. Libby will always be with us, and we are all so proud of our beautiful, caring, wonderful girl. And although she has been physically taken from us, the memories we have and the love we share will never be taken. Thank you.
The haunting realization that Libby needed her mother in her final moments adds an unbearable layer of grief to an already unbearable situation. Lisa's description of living in 2 worlds, one filled with everyday responsibilities and the other consumed by darkness and longing for her daughter, vividly illustrates the profound and lasting effects of such a profound loss. Russ Squire's testimony further emphasizes the profound grief experienced by Libby's family, highlighting the difficulty of confronting images of their beloved daughter following her untimely demise. The sentencing of Pavel Relowich serves as a grim reminder of the callousness and depravity of his actions, as well as the escalation of his criminal behavior leading up to Libby's murder. The judge's remarks regarding Relowich's intent to hide Libby's body add a chilling dimension to an already tragic narrative, underscoring the calculated cruelty of his actions. The sentence handed down to Relowich, while significant, can never truly alleviate the profound loss experienced by Libby's loved ones. However, it serves as a measure of justice for the heinous crimes committed against her. The story of Libby Squire serves as a poignant reminder of the importance of vigilance and empathy in safeguarding the vulnerable in our communities, as well as the enduring strength and resilience of those left behind in the wake of such senseless tragedy.